My name is John Loxley. I'm coming to you today out of our Southwestern division. I oversee the Harvey Supplemental program, and I'm very excited to be here. I'm very looking forward to getting a chance to network, but I'm also very encouraged by the turnout. And so, building on Colonel Vail's opening comments, the Harvey Supplemental program provides a tremendous opportunity to address the Texas energy coast with respect to building resiliency for the potential for the damaging storms that we've experienced in the past, and then also looking towards the future. And I'm very encouraged in the sense that there's a significant amount of partnership that's already happening. And again, building on Colonel Vail's introduction, my intent as the Harvey Supplemental Program Manager is to start to build those mature and sophisticated relationships with our partners, not only internally, but also externally. So as we proceed through the day and have some time and opportunity to converse, I'll be looking to reach out to each one of you to the best of my ability. And for anyone who's particularly interested in what I'm up to, please, I encourage you to reach out to me as well. So, okay. So I'm going to have some time today, and thank you very much to the Galveston District for inviting me to this very important event. But I'm going to spend some time with us today giving an overview of the Harvey Supplemental Program as it relates to not only the nation, but also the Southwestern Division, and then subsequently down here at the Galveston District. And then after I'm done, you'll have a chance to hear specifically about some of the programs. So, in support of the video that we watched, I'm going to spend a little bit of time giving us, USACE 101, just a high overview. I am going to take a little bit of time to recap some of the 2017 hurricane events, primarily from the perspective of continuing to put those in context on their significance and the significance that we have here on the Texas energy coast to build resiliency. I'm going to provide some overview and some highlights of the Bipartisan Budget Act, as well as related to the video, some of the response actions that USACE has undertaken in response to those 2017 hurricanes. I'm going to, as I mentioned, overview of the Southwestern Division Harvey Supplemental Program, and then how it relates here to the Galveston District. So USACE has been building strong for over 240 years. The Southwestern Division is one of 9 divisions, and within the Southwestern Division there's 4 districts. There's 43 districts overall within USACE. Within the Southwestern Division, our civil works boundaries encompass the Tulsa District, has a high water supply mission, Little Rock District involved with inland navigation, Fort Worth District, heavy in civil works, and then here in Galveston, as we'll see shortly, Galveston has really a spread across most of our mission areas, but as we learned and we saw from the video as well as Colonel Vail's introduction, the Texas energy coast, the navigation, and then the flood risk management for the inland areas is vitally important. So the Southwestern Division has a very diverse civil works mission portfolio. We are involved across the spectrum of civil work mission areas, and then here in Galveston, 5 of those mission areas are primarily executed with the exception of water supply and hydropower. Now that we've seen a little bit about what the Corps is and what the Corps does, I'm going to focus a little bit now on just a brief recap of the 2017 hurricane events. And again, I'm going to recap on those from the significance of them, just so that we continue to keep that context in mind. Much of the initial impacts have passed. Unfortunately, communities are still, and other areas, some of our interests and territories are still recovering from those. But the significance of them shouldn't be lost as we continue to move forward throughout this program. So in 2017, we experienced a significant amount of landfall, major hurricane events. Harvey, Irma, Maria were the major ones, and then of course Nate impacted our Gulf Coast as well. And so, again, the significance here is to continue to keep forward what the potential is for the Gulf Coast to experience these types of events, and then moving forward, how the Harvey Supplemental Program has given us the opportunity to build in resiliency to try to resist damages from those in the future. The Harvey hurricane, there's a number of significant highlights there, lowlights if you will, but also significant facts. But over 13 million individuals were impacted across 5 states. Irma, close to 7 million people impacted within the United States and the Caribbean. And then Maria, over 3 million impacted essentially all of Puerto Rico, right? And so these storm events, caused a significant disruption, not only to the lives of individuals, but also to the lives of the region, but also to the lives and the economy of the nation. So again, to Colonel Vale's point, here at the Gulf Coast, we have an impact not only locally, but also nationally to the security and economic vibrance of our nation. The 2017 hurricanes were, historic for lots of reasons. And I bring forth some of these damage estimates to put into perspective, not only individually, but collectively what the damage estimates were for those storms that all impacted us essentially during the same season. And so collectively, we're looking at about $290 billion worth of estimated damages. Set aside from Katrina and Sandy, those now represent 3 of the top 5 hurricanes that have impacted the United States in terms of damage estimates. So recognizing that the hurricanes were significant and recognizing that those hurricane events had a significant impact along the Gulf Coast, what I wanted to provide some insight on is the 2017, USACE's response to that. Not only immediately, but also the Harvey Supplemental Program that was put into place to then, address repair and then look forward towards building in towards that recovery and resilience. So in response to the 2017 hurricanes, the Bipartisan Budget Act was enacted early February of 2018. It included areas that were directly impacted by those storm events, but it also provided the opportunity across the nation and other parts of the world to address storm damages from previous storm events. And so you'll see it on the map, both in investigations and also in construction projects. There are areas that are projects being executed that are well outside of the immediate Harvey impact area. But it was a recognition that these types of storm events have a vital impact on the vibrancy of our communities, and this now provided us an opportunity nationwide to address and build resiliency again into our various water resources systems. The total program is about $16.5 billion. There are 58 construction projects that were identified to be supported. 38 study projects, those feasibilities and investigation projects, similar to the Houston watershed study. And then also related to that were some short-term projects that were identified. There was over 170 of those identified, and those were primarily focused on immediate repairs, either through flood control and coastal emergency needs, the PL 8499 program as an example, but also operations and maintenance. And here in Galveston, a particular emphasis was placed on repair of our operations and maintenance for our navigation systems. As a little bit of perspective, the 2017 Civil Works budget was about $5.5 billion. Here in Texas alone, the Harvey Supplemental provides for $5 billion worth of execution to execute these construction projects to, again, build resiliency here within Texas and particularly along the coast. So we had the hurricanes hit in late 2017. Immediately thereafter, the Army Corps of Engineers was engaged in recovery efforts, not only here along the coast, but also in Puerto Rico. Early in February, the Bipartisan Budget Act was enacted, and then very shortly thereafter, we initiated our early repairs through FCC&E to help some of the local systems with some of the minor damages that were occurred. And then throughout the timeline, I've highlighted the words repair, resiliency, because our immediate response was to repair those damages either again through FCC&E or through our operations and maintenance program, again primarily for our navigation projects. But then there was a significant emphasis played on long-term investment, and that's where that resiliency comes in. And so we'll hear today, and we heard a little bit tomorrow about a lot of the study efforts that were supported, and those are intended to address problems and then potentially provide future solutions. But there were a number of projects that were on the book, so to speak, with respect to authorized projects, and those were supported through long-term construction. And one thing that was very unique about the enactment of the Bipartisan Budget Act is it allowed the Army Corps of Engineers to lean forward, right, to get moving on efforts in advance of setting up some of those formal partnerships. We heard about project partnership agreements yesterday, and we'll hear some more about that today. But it allowed us to initiate and engage in design activities, early investigation activities, in advance of setting up those formal partnerships with our cost share partners. It also provided for the federal government to outlay finances in advance of the non-federal cost share. So it became a significant benefit to the fiscal advantages of this particular program, and I wanted to highlight some of those. And by the end of this fiscal year, we will have engaged ourselves in 8 new engineering starts, and then 10 contract awards, which represents a pretty significant undertaking. And you'll see in a subsequent slide what our workload looks like as we move forward. So here I've laid out for us, based on our current schedules, and recognize that some of this will adjust as we continue to refine our plan for execution. Right? We're not only looked on leaning forward, but we're also looking towards efficiencies and innovation. And as we realize those efficiencies and innovation, our delivery schedule, if you will, may adjust some. But you'll see in this graph that right now, 2019, 2020, we're heavy in our pre-engineering and design. 2020 through 21, we're really heavy in our real estate. 2019 to 22, we're going to have a sustained effort with respect to construction awards. And by the end of 2024, our current schedules represent that about 75% of our program is going to be executed. Now, that's a very short period of time. So what that means is not only has the Southwestern Division, but across the country, Harvey Supplemental teams have had to be stood up. We've now put a surge on our regular civil works execution, right? A significant surge. I represented here in Texas alone $5 billion, right? But what that also means is the continued strengthening of our partnerships, right? Not only through our non-federal sponsors, but through the AE and construction community to help realize either some of those efficiencies and some of those innovations. And so we look forward to that feedback. Now, we may not be able to meet all of those requirements or requests, but at least we can initiate ourselves in a discussion. And again, as was mentioned by Colonel Vail, mature those partnering relationships. So with respect to the Southwestern Division, our Harvey Supplemental program, again enacted and supported through the Bipartisan Budget Act, really is broken into four main areas, 4 portfolios, if you will. So we have the investigations portfolio at about $20 million. We have the construction portfolio at close to $5 billion, 4.8. Operations and maintenance and FCC&E, operations and maintenance represented currently at about $153 million, and then FCC&E at about $51 million. The difference between those, again, is the operations and maintenance and FCC&C are within a short-term account, and then the investigations and construction are in the long-term account. Something to recognize, of the about $6 billion that was appropriated through the Bipartisan Budget Act nationwide, about 35% of that resides within the Southwestern Division. So we, the Southwestern Division, collectively, we are executing a significant amount of that portion of work. So that, again, represents a large surge in our efforts, and then again, strengthens the need for those long-lasting and developing relationships through our partners and our internal teams. So here's a pretty detailed breakout of our various portfolios, our various projects. In total, we have about 40 projects we're working through. something that should be recognized, and then this is a part of your handout, so if you'd like to spend more time digging into this or have some questions to me, we can certainly do that. But of those 12 construction projects, I just wanted to point out that, it's not really just one project. So each project has a number of elements. So we're really working with 57 individual features within those projects. And so again, that's a significant amount of complexity. There's a significant amount of coordination, and there's been a significant amount of reaching out across our enterprise to try to bring in resources to help us through this surge. And so I just wanted to point this out as a significant effort. One thing I am happy to report is every one of these projects and every one of these elements has been initiated, okay? The dark green represents one that we've been able to accomplish to date, primarily in our short term. By the end of the fiscal year, those dark greens are going to increase. And then as we mentioned through the workload, by 2021, we're going to start seeing some dark greens in the long term, particularly in the investigations, and then moving into 22, 23, we're going to start seeing some significant accomplishment with respect to completion of our construction projects. So I'm going to focus now on Galveston District. Okay, so I've given us an overview of USACE-wide Bipartisan Budget Act, talked about the Harvey Supplemental Program with respect to Southwestern Division, but I'm going to bring it down one notch, and we're now going to focus here a little bit on Galveston District. I'm going to provide a little bit of highlights, and as we walk through the rest of the day, you're going to get an in-depth understanding of many of these projects as I understand. But right now, the Galveston District's looking in execution of 4 of our investigation studies. Those are all called out at a total budget of about $15.5 million. And then 9 of our construction projects, again with a portfolio budget of about $4.4 billion. And so if you remember, there was about $5 billion Southwestern Division. Well, almost all of it is here in Galveston. A significant amount is represented through our Sabine Pass to Galveston projects. And again, each one of these projects here in Galveston, as you'll see here on the next subsequent slide, really is intended to build and provide an infrastructure for resiliency for what we can expect to be coming for our next set of storms, right? We don't know when it's going to show up, but we're certainly prepared and can expect that it will. And so each one of these projects is vitally important to building into that infrastructure so that we can sustain our economy here locally, but also help sustain our economy regionally and especially locally. So in total, Galveston District is executing with respect to the Harvey Supplemental Program. Now, pay in mind, this is in addition to the regular program areas, executing approximately $4.7 billion worth of storm risk reduction investment. Now, again, that represents a significant investment. That represents a significant commitment by the federal government to protect and provide these types of storm risk reduction projects here in an important region of our nation. And one thing I wanted to point out on this particular slide is really just the juxtaposition between those projects and where the most significant amount of, in this case, rainfall was experienced during those storm events. And so a number of these projects are going to protect, storms coming into the Galveston area, but also a number of the projects are also addressing the drainage from the inland towards the coast. And so as is called out yesterday through Colonel Vale's excitement and passion about getting the Houston Watershed Project executed, right? There's a recognition here that interior drainage, really is something that needs to be addressed within the broader coastal Texas area. And again, I just wanted to represent that the projects that are being supported through the Bipartisan Budget Act and the projects that are being executed in support of the Bipartisan Budget Act through the Galveston District and through the leadership of Colonel Vale and Edmund Russo are really addressing the type of local and regional issues that we've been experiencing. And so I think that overall this program is going to provide a wide-reaching benefit here locally. So in closing, I wanted to continue to emphasize, first of all, I'm honored to have been given the opportunity to address such a diverse audience. I wanted to reemphasize that the Army Corps of Engineers has a broad spectrum of civil works missions, that almost all of those civil works mission areas are represented across the Southwestern Division and also here in the Galveston District. But I really wanted to reemphasize today, just for this last moment, how important the Bipartisan Budget Act is, what it represents from a federal investment in storm risk reduction, and then also encourage that maturity of our relationships as we step this forward. Clearly, this is a surge in the type of effort that we normally would go through. And so it's really going to take a team, right? And so like it or not, you're now part of the team. And our success is going to be, how well that team works through this. We've got a ways to go, but we're on a very accelerated timeline, okay? So let's look for efficiencies, let's look for innovation, and let's continue to mature those partnerships and those relations that we have internally as well as externally. Thank you.